May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer.
Amen.
It is easy to see why, among all the gospel stories of resurrection, John's account proves time and again to be the most beloved. It has all the features of a good movie: vivid detail, gripping suspense, and powerful human emotions. Moreover, it tells a down-to-earth sort of story about grief and joy, to which most of us should be able to relate. Mary has come to the tomb alone. But the reason is not made explicit in the text. The Gospels of Mark and Luke say that the women were bringing the spiced oils to the tomb to anoint the body. But in the Gospel according to John, Nicodemus had already performed that rite. But I don't think we need to have her intentions spelled out for us. In the past few days, Mary's life had changed dramatically. Her teacher and healer, whom she had followed and cared for and loved, had been arrested, brutalized, and executed. And the community that had formed around Jesus seemed to have scattered. Mary, like the disciples, were set adrift. Where else would she go but to the grave of her loved one? Where else would any of us go? And then to find an empty tomb where Jesus should have been could only have been, in that moment at least, another twisting of the knife. So Mary runs to tell the disciples, and while Peter and John run back to the tomb with her and confirm what she already knew, they offer no real assistance or comfort, and they quickly leave. And then we find Mary again, all alone, weeping beside an empty tomb. Now, not much is actually said about Mary Magdalene in any of the Gospels. Luke tells us that she was one of Jesus' followers and had been cured of 7 demons. And in all the Gospels, she is listed among those who stood at the foot of the cross and among the women who visited the tomb. But here, Mary is more than just one of the women. Here we see someone who represents all of us. She stands bereft and directionless. Jesus had been her anchor, as he had been for all his disciples. But in this moment, standing before the tomb, Mary can only have felt herself cast upon a harsh and chaotic wave. We need only think of moments in our own lives to understand. Perhaps we too have experienced the death of a loved one. Or perhaps we have experienced any moment, really, when the world around us seems to be turned on its head and the contents scattered out on the floor. So we may understand a bit the confusion and shock Mary must have been feeling in that moment. So Mary looks down into the tomb, perhaps with the desperate hope for some clue to what had happened, perhaps in disbelief that Jesus' body really and truly wasn't there. But what she finds is something far stranger. I can only imagine what Mary must have been thinking in that moment when she encountered the angels in the tomb. "Why are you weeping?" they ask. And like a person in a dream, Mary does not seem to completely ascertain what is happening around her. "They have taken away my Lord, and I know not where they have laid him," she says. And perhaps here too we can understand Mary's shock and despair. "They have taken away my home, my husband, my children. They have taken away my rights, my dignity, my hopes. They have taken away my life. The tragedy and compassionless injustice experienced by so many in this world is all right there in the helplessness and desperation felt by Mary Magdalene outside that tomb. They have taken away my master. You know, something I think that many modern Christians struggle with is our tendency to turn our faith in Jesus into primarily an abstract or intellectual endeavor. We turn our relationship with God into a set of doctrinal faith claims or a set of rules and regulations disguised as tradition. Without a deeper connection to our faith, it will never bear fruit. It cannot truly guide us or comfort us in our times of trouble. John's account of the encounter between Jesus and Mary Magdalene, however, is decidedly not abstract or intellectualized. Quite to the contrary, the scene between the two of them is visceral, emotional, and deeply, deeply personal. It was not until Mary hears Jesus call her by name that she suddenly realizes who he is. This was no formal encounter of a God meeting one of his subjects. He calls to Mary as someone who knows her, truly knows who she is, and her name is a sign of that intimacy, that knowledge and understanding of who she is. I think we all long to be known and called by God, just as Mary is called in this story. To be held in God's gaze, to be seen by God as the object of God's love, desire, and care. This longing is not a general longing. We do not want to be loved by some distant cosmic Lord who relates to us in the same grand way that God relates to the rest of the cosmos. We want to be seen for who we are in the most intimate, far-reaching corners of our interior selves. We want to know that God knows us better than we even know ourselves. And we long for the close, visceral, tangible experience with the holy. And perhaps that is why we fill our senses in this place with the beautiful sounds of bells and song, with the smell of the incense and the embroidered vestments and the silver chalices. All of these things make us feel closer to God's transcendence in this place. This is a good thing. We need the comfort and inspiration that beautiful worship offers us. But, and there is always a but, if our Christian lives do not extend out past these doors, then it is all little more than a show. It is in our connections with each other that God is truly found. It is in the physical, loving interactions between Christian people that we experience the love and welcome that Mary felt in that moment when Jesus called her by her name. When nobody knows or calls our name, we stand outside the embrace of the surrounding community. When our name is known and called, we are brought into the fold. When Mary's name was called by the risen Jesus, she was enfolded into the company of heaven, once again anchored in the knowledge that her Lord is with her and that she is not alone. And Jesus gives Mary a new purpose. Go and tell the others the good news. And when we are called, we are given a mission of our own as well, not unlike Mary's. We too are meant to go out and welcome and support each other, not in some abstract way, but in a way that means truly connecting with other people. We are here because we have heard the voice of the Good Shepherd calling our names. Like Mary, we too are given a new purpose: to go out and bring others into the fold by letting them know that they do belong here, that they no longer need to be alone. We are guided in our hearts by who or what we love. Let me say that again. We are guided by who or what we love. If, like Mary, we truly love the God we profess in this place, then we have no choice but to love as Christ loves and to be signs of God's love in the world. Amen.